Imagine this. You're a successful investor watching a startup unfold, but you're disguised as a delivery courier. No one knows your true identity, and in that moment you're treated like you don't matter. What happens when those assumptions are put to the test? What if your decision to stay in the shadows could change everything? In The Second Mile, one man decides to teach the world a powerful lesson about integrity, respect, and true leadership. His journey is more than just business. It's about the people you meet, the choices you make, and how the quietest actions can lead to the loudest results. Stay with us to see how a simple act of kindness, a decision to walk away from shortcuts, and a bold vision for a better future can change everything. Don't miss out on this inspiring story. If you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that will change the way you think about success and leadership. And while you're here, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. What do you think is the most important lesson about leadership and integrity? Let's talk about it. Ready to take the second mile? Let's dive in. Disclaimer. The following story is entirely fictional and is created for the purpose of providing moral lessons, motivation, inspiration, and valuable life insights. While the characters, events, and scenarios depicted in this video are not based on real individuals or actual occurrences, the themes and messages aim to offer meaningful reflections on integrity, leadership, respect, and personal growth. The content is designed to inspire and encourage viewers to think critically about their own values and choices. Any resemblance to real-life persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. We hope this story sparks new ideas and encourages you to take positive actions in your own life. Enjoy the journey. The Second Mile follows Marcus Reed, a quiet, unassuming man who works as a package delivery courier in Colorado. Unbeknownst to the startup company SwiftScale, he is actually a key investor, disguised to assess their culture before making a significant investment. When treated disrespectfully by the company's staff due to their assumptions about his appearance, Marcus decides to teach them a valuable lesson in integrity, humility, and the true value of people. Through this experience, Marcus sets out to create his own company, Second Mile, built on respect, kindness, and ethical leadership. As he works alongside his team, including Alana, a dedicated worker he meets during his delivery rounds, Marcus learns that success isn't just about profits and technology, it's about people, culture, and the long-term impact of doing things the right way. The Second Mile is a story of quiet revolution, where true leadership is measured by the character of individuals, and the ripple effects of simple acts of kindness and respect can change everything. Will Marcus's vision succeed against the odds, or will he face the same struggles that have brought down so many before him? Join Marcus on his journey to build a company where integrity and people come first, and discover how the road less traveled can lead to the most profound success. Listen on to find out how walking the second mile can change the future. Create image only without text with size 1920 by 1080 pixel for the story below. Make sure the images appear realistic, natural, and consistent in style. The morning sun peeked over the snowy peaks of Denver, spilling pale gold over the city's restless streets. Downtown buzzed with a strange blend of urgency and caffeine as commuters hurried along the sidewalks, bundled up against the stubborn chill of late winter. In the heart of this urban pulse, Marcus Reed adjusted the stiff collar of his borrowed courier uniform. The navy jacket and khaki pants were a far cry from his usual sharp suits, but today was not about appearances. Today was about seeing something real. Marcus had built his life from the ground up. Years ago, he started with nothing but a beat-up van and an idea about smarter logistics. Hard work, sleepless nights, and relentless vision had paid off when he sold his company for millions. Now he ran Reed Ventures, a quiet but powerful investment firm that specialized in startups that wanted to change the world without losing their soul. SwiftScale had caught his attention with their revolutionary routing software and impressive earnings projections. On paper they were perfect, but Marcus had learned the hard way that numbers lied, that people lied, and that culture was a currency far more valuable than projected earnings. So he had devised a simple test. Disguised as a low-level courier, he would deliver a few packages to SwiftScale's headquarters and see, firsthand, how they treated someone they thought had nothing to offer. The friend who had lent him the route, an old buddy named Trevor, had laughed at the plan but handed over the company badge and scanner anyway. Marcus tapped the device against his palm now, feeling a nervous thrill he had not felt in years. It was one thing to sit in a leather chair reviewing polished pitch decks. It was another to step into the trenches. The building came into view, a sleek glass and steel monument to modern ambition. SwiftScale's logo, a stylized blue lightning bolt, gleamed above the revolving doors. Marcus took a breath, squared his shoulders and pushed inside, the heavy packages weighing down his arms. The lobby was spacious and sterile, with polished concrete floors and a massive living wall of greenery. A woman sat behind the reception desk, tapping lazily on her phone. Without looking up, she said, "Deliveries around back." Marcus adjusted the weight of the packages and cleared his throat. "I have a few that need signatures," he said evenly. The woman sighed dramatically, setting her phone down with a clatter. She gave him a once-over, her expression tightening with disdain. "Fine," she muttered. "But hurry up. We are busy." Marcus nodded without a word. He walked toward the elevators, the receptionist already forgetting he existed. As he waited for the doors to open, a group of employees passed by, laughing and chatting loudly. One brushed against his shoulder without apologizing. The first impression was already being made, and it was not a good one. The elevator dinged and Marcus stepped in, a flicker of sadness tightening in his chest. Maybe it was just a bad moment. Maybe the upstairs teams would be better. Maybe. The numbers blinked upward as he ascended toward the next stage of his quiet investigation. The doors opened onto a bustling open-concept office filled with the clatter of keyboards, the hum of low conversations, and the occasional bark of laughter. He tightened his grip on the packages and stepped out, invisible among them. The real test was just beginning. Marcus stepped carefully into the sprawling office space, the scent of fresh coffee and printer ink filling the air. The layout was all clean lines and exposed ductwork, the kind of aesthetic that startups believed screamed innovation. Standing amidst rows of standing desks and scattered beanbags, Marcus felt the shift immediately. Conversations died down, replaced by furtive glances and dismissive smirks. A young man with a headset, perhaps no older than 23, looked up from his triple-monitor setup. His gaze landed on Marcus with the mild annoyance reserved for someone delivering junk mail. "You lost, man?" the young worker called out, loud enough for nearby colleagues to hear. Marcus kept his posture relaxed, shifting the packages in his arms. "Delivery," he said simply. "Need someone to sign." The young man exchanged a glance with a woman at the next desk, both of them snickering under their breath. Marcus caught a whisper not meant to reach him, but it did anyway. Probably just some temp. Bet he can barely read the label. Heat rose in Marcus's chest, but he held it down, steady as stone. He knew this role well, not just as a disguise today but from memories of his own past. People underestimated what they did not bother to understand. A tall man in a branded Swift-scale fleece finally rose from his desk. His name tag read, Operations Manager. He sauntered over with an exaggerated sigh. "Let me guess," he said, squinting at the packages. "You got the wrong address. Happens all the time." "No," Marcus replied, meeting his gaze evenly. "These are for your office. Name's on the manifest. Needs a signature." The manager snatched the scanner from Marcus's hand and jabbed his signature onto the screen with a finger. As he did, he grumbled loudly enough for half the floor to hear. "Minimum wage warriors out here thinking they are saving the world." Laughter rippled through the nearby desks. Some employees did not join in, but no one spoke up either. The silence of complicity hung heavier than any joke. Marcus let the words slide over him, feeling the sting but filing it away with sharp precision. Every glance, every chuckle, every contemptuous word was evidence. Not of personal offense but of something deeper, something rotten at the core. As he turned to leave, a voice stopped him. "Hey man," said a soft voice. "You want some water? Looks like those packages were heavy." It was a young woman, and in turn judging by the badge clipped to her sweater. She stood awkwardly by the kitchenette, holding out a small plastic bottle. Her smile was genuine, a flicker of kindness in a room otherwise glazed with indifference. Marcus accepted the water with a nod. "Thank you," he said quietly. She smiled again, a little nervously, and turned back to her tasks. Marcus made his way to the stairwell instead of the elevator, needing a moment to breathe. As he descended, he could still hear the echoes of laughter bouncing off the steel and glass walls behind him. At the base of the stairs, he paused and leaned against the cool concrete, his heart beating with a steady, relentless rhythm. He had his answer already. But there was one more part to play before he would reveal himself. And when he did, it would not be with anger or vengeance. It would be with the weight of truth. Marcus tucked the empty scanner into his jacket and stepped back into the Denver cold, the snow beginning to drift down like tiny messengers from the wide, indifferent sky. The meeting was scheduled for that afternoon. They had no idea what was coming. The afternoon sun slanted through the skyscrapers as Marcus sat in a small coffee shop across the street from Swift-Scale's building. He sipped a dark roast, watching the steady stream of workers hustling in and out of the lobby. Some looked weary, some excited, and others just numb. It was a silent parade of ambition, masked with the thin layer of urgency that cities like Denver wore so well. Marcus pulled out his phone and reviewed the investor deck that SwiftScale had sent him weeks ago. Crisp graphs, glossy buzzwords, bullet points about revolutionary change. On the surface, they were everything an investor could want. Efficient, scalable, disruptive. But now those promises felt hollow. He had seen something far more important than profit margins. He had seen the character of the people behind the polished image, and it had left a sour taste in his mouth. He checked the time. In 30 minutes, he was expected at SwiftScale's offices, not as a courier, but as the potential savior who could inject millions into their scaling ambitions. The man they would smile for, listen to, and cater to because they believed he could open doors they could not force on their own. Marcus stood and straightened his jacket, the tailored navy fabric fitting like armor. He left the coffee shop, crossed the street, and entered the SwiftScale building once more. This time he did not carry packages. This time, his presence alone was the package they had been waiting for. The receptionist jolted upright as he approached, all traces of disdain evaporating. Her eyes flicked nervously to the polished gold badge hanging from his lapel. It bore the name Reed Ventures, a name well known enough in Colorado's startup scene to cause a visible ripple of anxiety. "Good afternoon, sir," she said, her voice suddenly sweet. "Welcome to SwiftScale. We have been expecting you." Marcus gave a polite nod and waited as she scrambled to notify someone upstairs. Within minutes, an executive assistant appeared, practically vibrating with nerves. "Mr. Reed," she gushed. "It is an absolute honor. Please follow me. The leadership team is ready for your arrival." They swept him through the lobby and up a private elevator, bypassing the noisy chaos of the open office. Marcus caught glimpses of familiar faces along the way, the same workers who had smirked at him, who had whispered their insults. Now they avoided his gaze, their postures stiffening as they realized who he truly was. At the top floor, the glass doors to the executive conference room opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the leadership team stood waiting. There were 6 of them, all smiles, all practiced confidence. "Marcus," said the CEO, stepping forward with an outstretched hand. "It is a pleasure to finally meet you in person. We are so excited about the future and what we can build together." Marcus shook his hand firmly, then took a seat at the long table. He set his phone face down in front of him, folding his hands patiently. He let them speak first. They launched into a well-rehearsed presentation, animated and enthusiastic. They spoke of market potential, of technical superiority, of strategic alliances already in the works. Charts flashed on the screen behind them, showing lines soaring ever upward. Marcus listened, silent and unmoving. The only sign of life was the slight tapping of his thumb against his knee, timed perfectly with the seconds ticking away on the wall clock. Finally they finished. The room fell into a charged silence, expectant and tense. Marcus sat back in his chair, his voice calm when he finally spoke. "You built something impressive," he said. "At least on paper." The CEO beamed, misreading the tone completely. "But," Marcus continued, his voice sharpening just enough to draw their attention fully, "a company is not just an idea. It is not just numbers. It is people. It is culture." The smiles began to falter, some executives exchanging quick glances. Marcus leaned forward slightly, his words landing with deliberate weight. "This morning I visited your office. Not as an investor. As a courier." The blood drained from the CEO's face. A nervous cough escaped from someone at the far end of the table. "I watched how your staff treated someone they thought was beneath them," Marcus said, voice even but cutting. "I heard the jokes, the disrespect, the casual cruelty. No one dared speak." Marcus allowed the silence to stretch, making them sit in the discomfort they had created. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper, the same manifest from earlier, and set it gently on the table. "I came here today prepared to invest," Marcus said. "I believed in your vision. But culture cannot be fixed by an influx of capital. It is a reflection of your leadership. And what I saw this morning tells me everything I need to know." He rose smoothly to his feet, buttoning his jacket. "I will not be investing." Without another word, he turned and walked out, the sound of his footsteps echoing against the cold, gleaming floors. The elevator doors closed behind Marcus with a gentle whoosh, cutting off the stunned silence of the conference room above. As he descended floor by floor, the weight that had gathered across his shoulders throughout the day began to lift. Outside, the Denver streets remained busy with their usual rhythm, indifferent to the drama playing out in the tower above. Marcus stepped into the crisp afternoon air, inhaling deeply. The snow had stopped, leaving a clean, sharp scent in the air, like the city had been scrubbed raw. He turned up the collar of his coat against the lingering cold and started walking with no particular destination in mind. He needed time to think, to breathe, to feel the satisfaction that came not from revenge but from living by his principles. Across the street, unnoticed by most, a small ripple had already begun inside SwiftScale. In the conference room, the leadership team sat frozen, the presentation screen still blinking behind them. The CEO slumped into his chair, running a hand down his face. The operations manager, the same man who had joked about minimum wage warriors earlier, sat pale and sweating, knowing exactly who Marcus had heard and seen. Whispers started to break out among the executives. A few stared accusingly at the CEO. Others pulled out their phones, likely drafting damage control emails to the board. The culture that had been invisible to so many was now exposed, raw and undeniable. In the span of a few minutes, Marcus had laid bare their greatest weakness, a weakness no amount of venture funding could disguise. Back downstairs, the intern who had offered Marcus the bottle of water earlier sat at her desk, oblivious to the meeting she had narrowly missed being part of. She tapped away on her computer, organizing spreadsheets for a project she had barely been given any credit for. Her name was Alana Brooks, a first-generation college student from Pueblo who had dreamed of breaking into tech. She had applied to dozens of internships before SwiftScale finally called. She had been so proud when she got the offer, even if it had come with long hours and low pay. When Marcus had accepted the water bottle that morning, she had not thought much of it. It had just seemed like the decent thing to do, a small kindness in a world that often forgot to be kind. She was still typing when her phone buzzed. An email from Reed Ventures. The subject line simply read, "Opportunity." Alana stared at the screen, confused. She clicked it open. Inside, a short message waited for her. "Your kindness today did not go unnoticed. If you are interested in discussing future opportunities beyond SwiftScale, please reach out. Sincerely, Marcus Reed." Her hands trembled slightly as she read it again, making sure she had not imagined it. A few desks away, some coworkers were still murmuring about the disaster upstairs, oblivious to the seed of hope that had just been planted in her inbox. Back outside, Marcus walked past Union Station, the grand old building catching the last light of the afternoon. His breath misted in front of him, but he did not feel the cold. He felt something deeper. A quiet affirmation that he had made the right choice. Not just for himself, but for the kind of future he wanted to build. The skyline of Denver stretched out before him, sharp and bold against the pale sky, full of promise and peril in equal measure. Marcus smiled to himself, a small, knowing smile. The city had shown him its heart today, both the cracks and the courage. And he was just getting started. By the following week, the ripples from Marcus's decision had turned into waves. News traveled fast in Colorado's tight-knit tech community, even faster when someone of Marcus Reed's stature was involved. The whispers began with the investors first. Word leaked that Reed Ventures had pulled out of SwiftScale after an unannounced visit. Details were scarce, but the message was clear. Something had gone very wrong inside those glossy walls. At first, SwiftScale tried to spin the story. They claimed strategic differences, suggested Reed Ventures had changed its investment priorities. But insiders began piecing together what had happened. Employees who had seen Marcus disguised as a courier started talking, quietly at first, then with growing confidence. Stories surfaced. Stories of how the receptionist treated delivery drivers, how junior staff were spoken to, how executives fostered an atmosphere where hierarchy mattered more than humanity. Tech blogs caught wind of it. Anonymous posts appeared on message boards and social media, under titles like "The Courier Test" and "Culture is King." One article, written by a respected journalist in the startup scene, captured it perfectly. SwiftScale failed not because of a lack of innovation, but because it forgot that character builds companies, not algorithms. SwiftScale's leadership scrambled. Emergency meetings were held. A public apology was drafted, so carefully worded that it said everything and nothing at once. They promised new training programs, anonymous feedback channels, a renewed commitment to inclusivity. But it was too late. The damage was done. Potential hires ghosted them. Other investors grew cautious. Existing clients hesitated to renew contracts, worried that a company so careless with people might be equally careless with partners. Meanwhile, Marcus kept his head down. He refused all interview requests, all offers to tell his side of the story. He believed in letting actions speak louder than headlines. Instead, he focused his energy on building something better. Alana Brooks was the first call he made. They met at a small co-working space near Sloan's Lake, far from the polished glass towers of downtown. She arrived nervous but determined, clutching a simple folder of ideas and a heart full of quiet ambition. Marcus welcomed her with a handshake and a smile. No big speeches. No condescension. Just an open seat at the table and a genuine invitation to build something real. "You saw me," he said to her as they sat down over coffee, "when others looked right through me. That matters more than you know." Together, they began sketching out the early plans for a new project. Something that would focus on ethical logistics, sustainable growth, and most importantly, people. Alana brought fresh ideas about community-driven delivery models, about hiring practices that prioritized character over pedigree. Marcus brought experience, resources, and an unwavering belief that the future could be better than the past. Word of their collaboration began to spread in quieter circles. Talented people disillusioned with the old way of doing things reached out. Small groups started forming, the beginnings of a movement built not on disruption for its own sake, but on building with purpose. In the evenings, Marcus would sometimes sit by his window, looking out over the city lights glittering against the dark Rockies. He thought about all the people still trapped in places like Swiftscale, places where potential was overlooked because of appearances, where kindness was seen as weakness. He had made a choice not just to walk away but to walk towards something better. The echoes of that choice were just beginning to reach ears that had long grown deaf to the sound of change. And Marcus Reed was more than ready to answer them. Spring crept into Colorado slowly, painting the mountainsides in soft greens and scattering wildflowers along the highways. With the change in seasons came a new energy, a quiet revolution growing not through press releases and flashy campaigns, but through action and word of mouth. Marcus and Alana's project, quietly named Second Mile, began taking root. They leased a modest space in 5 Points, a neighborhood rich with history and community spirit. The walls still smelled faintly of fresh paint and the floorboards creaked, but to them, it was the foundation of something far sturdier than any skyscraper. Second Mile started small. A team of 5 at first, people who knew what it felt like to be overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated. Drivers, programmers, logistics coordinators, and community organizers, each one chosen not just for what they could do but for who they were. Marcus insisted on meeting every new hire personally. No automated filters, no robotic interviews. Just conversations, real and unfiltered. He asked questions about failure, about perseverance, about kindness. He listened more than he spoke. Alana, now the operations lead, crafted policies that prioritized fairness at every level. Drivers were paid well above industry standards with full benefits. Schedules were built with flexibility and humanity in mind. They partnered with local businesses first, independent bookstores, farmers markets, family-run bakeries, offering affordable, ethical delivery services that matched their values. Word spread, one satisfied partner at a time. Meanwhile, Marcus watched the city respond to Swiftscale's slow unraveling. Lawsuits emerged. Former employees came forward with formal complaints. Other investors backed away. It became a cautionary tale whispered in venture capital circles across Boulder, Denver, and beyond. But Marcus did not gloat. He had not built Second Mile to outshine anyone. He had built it because something inside him refused to let cynicism win. One afternoon, standing outside the modest headquarters, Marcus watched a fleet of new electric vans roll into the parking lot, each one bearing Second Mile's simple logo, an open road stretching toward a rising sun. Alana came out to stand beside him, her eyes reflecting the bright midday light. "Feels real now," she said softly. "It always was," Marcus replied. They stood in comfortable silence, the low hum of the city around them. Later that week, Second Mile hosted its first open house. People from all over Denver showed up, not just to hear about logistics innovations but to experience a different way of doing business. There were no velvet ropes, no security checkpoints, no forced smiles. Just music, good food from local vendors, and open doors. Marcus spoke briefly near the end of the evening. Not from a podium, but standing casually among folding chairs and string lights. He talked about dignity. About how success was hollow if it came at the cost of decency. About how the best companies were built not from the top down, but from the heart out. He did not mention Swiftscale once. He did not need to. Everyone there knew. The people clapped not out of obligation but out of genuine hope, a sound that filled the old building's rafters and spilled out into the cooling night. As the crowd lingered, talking and laughing under the stars, Marcus stepped back, letting them own the moment. He watched Alana lead a group of interns on a tour, her confidence growing with each step. He realized something then, something simple but profound. Real change did not come with grand gestures. It came with steady hands, open hearts, and the willingness to take the second mile when the first had already worn you thin. The seeds were planted. The future, however uncertain, had never looked so possible. Summer settled over Colorado with a warm, generous hand. The mountains stood tall and green under endless blue skies, and in the heart of Denver, Second Mile flourished quietly. Marcus's days filled quickly. Meetings with community partners, interviews with candidates who wanted more than just a paycheck. Late nights spent sketching out new ideas in a leather-bound notebook he kept close. But even as the company grew, he made sure the foundation remained steady. Culture first always. Not just slogans painted on walls, but real actions that were felt in every interaction, every decision. By August, Second Mile was delivering for over 100 small businesses across Denver and Boulder. Their fleet of electric vans had expanded, each one driven by someone who knew their worth did not depend on the uniform they wore. Marcus insisted on riding along with the drivers once a week. No announcement, no special treatment. Just another set of hands loading crates of books, lifting crates of fresh peaches, handing off packages with a smile. He never forgot how it felt to be invisible. He never wanted anyone in his company to feel that way. Alana had blossomed into a natural leader. She launched a mentorship program inside Second Mile, pairing newer hires with more experienced ones, creating a chain of support and encouragement that no amount of policy could manufacture. The company started attracting attention, the kind Marcus had hoped for. Not flashy headlines or hollow awards, but quiet endorsements from respected community leaders, from other ethical investors who valued more than quarterly earnings. At a regional startup summit in Fort Collins, Marcus was invited to speak. He wore a simple dark suit, no flashy watch, no entourage. He stood before a room of entrepreneurs, many of them eager, some skeptical, all of them chasing the next big thing. Marcus told them about Second Mile, but more importantly, he told them about that day at Swiftscale. He described the smirks, the jokes, the way assumptions had hung in the air like smoke. He did not name names. He did not need to. Instead, he asked them a question. "What would your company look like," he said, his voice steady, "if you treated every stranger who walked through your doors like they were your future?" Silence settled over the room. Not the uncomfortable kind, but the thoughtful kind that comes when something true lands deeply. He thanked them, stepped off the stage, and left before anyone could corner him with business cards or empty praise. Outside, the late summer sun stretched across the fields, turning everything golden. Marcus walked slowly to his car, the horizon wide and full of promise ahead. He knew there would be setbacks. Growth was never clean or easy. There would be betrayals, missteps, maybe even failures. But the road stretched forward all the same. He thought of the workers at Second Mile, of Alana leading a morning huddle with laughter and purpose. He thought of the drivers setting out at dawn, their vans packed with hope. He thought of every person who had ever been overlooked, sneered at, or underestimated. And he thought of the difference one man could make, not by playing their game better, but by building a new one altogether. Marcus smiled as he slid behind the wheel and pulled onto the open road, the mountains standing steady in the distance. He was not chasing anything anymore. He was leading something. And the horizon was just the beginning. The end. Moral lessons from this story. Stories have always served as vessels of wisdom, delivering lessons that are far more enduring than facts alone. The Second Mile is one such story, a modern fable rooted in the everyday world of startups, deliveries, and human ambition. On its surface, it is a simple tale of a man wronged and a company exposed. Yet underneath lies a tapestry of principles that speak to every person who has ever been judged, overlooked, or underestimated. At its core, Marcus Reed's journey is a reminder that the character of individuals and institutions matters more than ever. In a society obsessed with speed, disruption, and appearances, this story stands as a quiet rebellion. The lessons embedded in Marcus's path do not end with business advice or motivational slogans. They extend into every field, every community, and every life that seeks meaning beyond mere success. Let us explore, lesson by lesson, the deeper truths that the Second Mile offers. Lesson 1. Never judge a person by their appearance. From the moment Marcus entered Swiftscale's offices dressed as a delivery courier, he became invisible to most of the staff. The very people eager to impress investors made the fatal mistake of assuming worth based on outward appearances. The receptionist's dismissive tone, the operations manager's mocking jokes, even the subtle body language of avoidance, all revealed an undercurrent of bias. To them, Marcus was a uniform, not a man. Human biases run deep. Studies in behavioral science confirm what Marcus encountered. Humans instinctively categorize others based on limited information. Clothing, speech patterns, even posture can trigger unconscious judgments. Often, these snap assessments are deeply flawed, rooted in stereotypes rather than truth. In workplaces, this bias can cost companies dearly. Qualified candidates are overlooked. Partnerships dissolve before they begin. Trust is lost before it is even offered. Marcus's silent observation revealed this cultural rot. It showed that no amount of branding or technology can cover for an organization's failure to respect human dignity. The hidden potential in every encounter. Every person we meet carries unseen stories, talents, and possibilities. By judging prematurely, we cut ourselves off from the very connections that could transform us. In real life, there are countless examples. The janitor who holds a patent in engineering. The waitress who writes poetry that one day wins a national prize. The driver who dreams up an invention that changes lives. Marcus was the living embodiment of hidden potential walking through Swiftscale's halls. Their failure to see him cost them everything. The lesson is clear: respect every soul. You never know who stands before you. Lesson 2. True leadership begins with humility. Marcus's leadership style was not marked by flashy speeches, dramatic ultimatums, or self-serving announcements. It was revealed through small, consistent actions. Riding with drivers. Listening to interns. Refusing to flaunt his wealth or status. This humility set him apart from the executives at Swiftscale, who believed leadership was a matter of commanding attention rather than serving others. Humility builds trust. Humility in leadership creates spaces where people feel seen, valued, and safe. When a leader shows they are not above the team, they invite genuine collaboration. At Second Mile, Marcus built a culture where no one was invisible. His weekly rides with delivery drivers demonstrated more commitment than any memo ever could. Contrast this with the top-down hierarchy at Swiftscale, where executives demanded respect but did little to earn it. In the end, the arrogance at Swiftscale led to decay, while the humility at Second Mile led to growth. Leadership is not about standing above others. It is about walking beside them. Lesson 3. Company culture is the true bottom line. The story of Swiftscale's failure highlights an important truth. Company culture is far more valuable than quarterly profits or flashy innovations. Marcus knew that a company built on mutual respect and shared vision would not only succeed financially but would also attract people who believed in something bigger than just a paycheck. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. The collapse of Swiftscale wasn't due to a lack of funding or a failure of technology, it was a breakdown in values. The executives had created an environment that devalued workers and prioritized profit over people. Marcus's quiet observation as a courier revealed how systemic the issue was. Swiftscale had the resources to become a market leader, but they lacked the one thing that truly sustains long-term growth: a culture that valued human dignity. Without it, no strategy, no matter how brilliant, could ever succeed. When Marcus started Second Mile, he did not focus on rapid expansion or beating competitors. Instead, he focused on creating a company where people mattered more than profits. This was evident in every hiring decision, every policy, and every interaction. At Second Mile, culture became the true bottom line. The people were the business. The rest, including revenue, followed naturally. A company is only as strong as the people who make it up. When people feel valued, they build businesses that endure. Lesson 4. Kindness is never wasted. Alana's small act of kindness, offering Marcus a bottle of water when he arrived disguised as a courier, seemed insignificant at the time. But it sparked a ripple effect that would change both her life and the trajectory of Marcus's new venture. The power of small gestures. Kindness, as Marcus showed, is never truly wasted. It might not always be rewarded in the moment, but it creates an invisible foundation of goodwill that can echo through a lifetime. Alana's decision to treat Marcus with respect, despite his unremarkable appearance, opened the door to a relationship that would benefit both of them in ways neither could have anticipated. In real-world business, small acts of kindness build trust and loyalty. They are the threads that weave a more human approach into the fabric of a company. Employees who feel appreciated and respected will work harder, stay longer, and recommend the company to others. Partners are more likely to collaborate, and customers feel the difference when they are treated with dignity. Marcus's leadership exemplified this truth. His approach was never transactional. He believed that the value of kindness, a simple human connection, was immeasurable. Even the smallest act of kindness can have lasting consequences. You never know how one simple gesture can transform a life. Lesson 5. Integrity means choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. Marcus had every reason to accept the offer from SwiftScale's executives. They had deep pockets, a fast-growing company, and a promise of an easy return on his investment. But Marcus understood something that many investors overlooked. Integrity is not for sale. The cost of compromise. In life and business, integrity often requires making hard choices. Choosing to act with integrity is not always the easiest or most profitable path in the short term, but it is the one that leads to lasting success. Marcus could have easily ignored the toxic culture at SwiftScale and invested for his own gain. Instead, he made the difficult decision to walk away and build something more meaningful. This lesson resonates deeply in the modern world, where the pressure to cut corners, overlook ethical dilemmas, or compromise values for the sake of success is ever present. Many individuals, businesses, and governments have faced the temptation to take the easy road, to prioritize profit, fame, or speed over ethics. But time and again, history has shown that shortcuts lead to collapse. Marcus showed that true success is built on doing what's right, even when it's difficult. The harder road may be slower, but it is far more enduring. Choosing integrity is always worth it, even if it costs more than we expect. The reward is peace of mind, long-term trust, and genuine success. Lesson 6. True innovation includes social responsibility. Marcus didn't just innovate in logistics. He innovated in business ethics. At Second Mile, he integrated social responsibility into every aspect of the company. His model wasn't about cutting-edge tech or flashy growth strategies. It was about building a business that placed people first, disrupting business norms. In today's business world, innovation is often equated with technological advancement or market disruption. But Marcus understood that true innovation also involves changing the way business is conducted, fostering environments that empower people and reflect ethical values. Second Mile's innovative approach to delivery didn't just rely on technology. It also relied on the belief that ethical business practices were not only possible but necessary. They proved that companies could be profitable while prioritizing fair wages, worker dignity, and community development. This was a stark contrast to the model at SwiftScale, where innovation was measured by metrics alone, with no consideration of the people behind the numbers. Marcus's vision for innovation was broader: to use business as a force for good, not just for profit. By choosing to run a company that valued ethical treatment, sustainability, and transparency, Marcus demonstrated that businesses can, and should, innovate in ways that benefit society as a whole. True innovation is about creating change that benefits everyone, from employees to customers to the community. Lesson 7. The power of quiet revolutions. Marcus's impact was not flashy. It wasn't a viral campaign or a high-profile media moment. It was a quiet revolution that began with a single, deliberate action: choosing integrity over expedience. Slow and steady wins the race. The story of Second Mile reminds us that real change is often imperceptible at first. It is slow, steady, and rooted in deep values. In a world obsessed with instant results and overnight success, Marcus's quiet approach proves that meaningful progress takes time. SwiftScale's collapse was swift, but Second Mile's rise was gradual. Marcus didn't rush it. He took the time to build a company that stood the test of time. His decision to grow steadily, putting values before profits, allowed Second Mile to build a loyal base of customers, partners, and employees who shared the same vision. This lesson applies not just to business but to life in general. Whether it's personal growth, societal change, or professional development, true revolutions often start quietly. The most impactful changes often begin in the unnoticed corners and work their way outward, affecting more people than we can see at first. The quiet, deliberate actions we take today can change the world tomorrow. Lesson 8. Opportunity finds those who stay ready. Alana's life changed when Marcus recognized her potential. But what made her ready for that moment wasn't just luck. It was her willingness to show kindness, to work diligently, and to be open to new possibilities. Preparing for the unexpected. Alana didn't know who Marcus was when she gave him that bottle of water. But her readiness to act with kindness, her commitment to doing her best regardless of recognition, meant that when the opportunity came, she was prepared. In life, we often find that opportunities arise when we least expect them. They don't announce themselves. They don't come with guarantees. But the people who are ready for them are those who have worked quietly, consistently, and with integrity. Marcus was ready when SwiftScale failed. Alana was ready when Marcus noticed her. And when Second Mile began to grow, they were both ready to seize the moment, knowing they had prepared for it all along. Opportunity doesn't always knock loudly. Stay ready, and when it comes, you'll be able to answer. Conclusion. The second mile teaches us that success is not a matter of appearances or shortcuts. It is about choosing integrity over convenience, humility over ego, and kindness over indifference. Marcus's story is a reminder that business is more than profits and growth. It's about building something that lasts, that values people, and that contributes to a greater good. The lessons from this story: never judging by appearances, leading with humility, valuing company culture, practicing kindness, and building with integrity, are timeless. As we face challenges in our own lives, whether in our careers, our relationships, or our communities, we can all draw inspiration from Marcus's journey. The road may not always be easy, but the second mile is the one that truly defines us. When we walk that second mile, we build a future worth living for. Thank you for joining us on this journey with the second mile. We hope Marcus's story has inspired you to think about the choices we make, the people we encounter, and the true meaning of success. In a world that often rushes to judgment, remember that integrity, kindness, and respect are the foundations of lasting success. If you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss out on more powerful stories, valuable lessons, and inspiration. We have plenty more content lined up, designed to challenge, motivate, and help you grow. Also, don't forget to leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the second mile and what lessons you took away from it. What do you think makes a great leader? Let's continue the conversation. Thanks again for watching, and be sure to check out our other videos. Until next time, keep walking the second mile, because that's where true change happens.